Hi, my name's Leighton Jin. I'm the Director of Development for the American Documentary and Animation Film Festival, also known as AmDocs. We have a special guest today, Michael McCourt, the director of a great and intriguing documentary called Ripple. And can you talk to us a little bit about your film?
Sure. First off, we're really excited to be a part of AmDocs, and yeah, the film is the story of Rae Ripple, and um, I think overall it is a story of perseverance and really overcoming some hardships that she's gone through her life, primarily abuse and thoughts of suicide. But it's more than that. It's more of how she overcame these challenging moments in her life, and through art and her family and her determination, she has um, become just a prolific and profound individual, not only for myself and the impact she had on me, but for all the people that she reaches out to and continues to share them about her journey and hope so that she can help other people as well.
And the timing couldn't be better because, coming out of the pandemic, there's been a lot of discussion about mental health and all that. I think the timing couldn't be better to share her story. How much do you think that will be helpful for people going through something similar or their own struggles? Because when I was looking at her at the description of the film, I was like, wow, this can really help a lot of people, and a lot of people need, um, I guess, a role model who's overcome.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, Ray, as she came up through her journey in life, she was always about go. She just kept going forward, and she consumed herself through her art and providing for her family. So
Mhm.
I think she was just on a train that just kind of put things off to the side and kept pushing to provide for her kids. That was her number one. And in the story of the film, she speaks to the fact that around the time COVID came, and I think this happened for a lot of people, we were all of a sudden left to ourselves and our internal thoughts. And for a lot of us, we had to start to come and face some realities internally. I certainly can relate to it. And I think it was at that point where things started to hit her in ways that she hadn't thought of. And she started to start searching back into her childhood and her earlier life. And those traumas, or as she says in the film, triggers, were starting to show themselves. And I think that's when she was really pressed with, does she continue to move forward, or does she just put an end to it at that moment? And I think for a lot of people, whether it is COVID or not, there are points in our lives where we just start to look inward and we start listening to maybe the narrative we've been telling ourselves. And for a lot of people, we can get lost on a journey that we may not feel we're wanted anymore. And so whether we're talking about coming out of COVID, but I think that this is a story that no matter of what point in time, I think that the more people that can see themselves as her, for me, I saw her and I saw what she has become, and she has become such a great motivation for me. And in many ways, as I made this first attempt into this film, she was a champion for myself. We both championed each other. So I owe a lot to Ray, and we both went into this hoping that if we could reach one person, it would be worth everything for making this film.
And you guys met on a commercial shoot, correct?
Correct. I'm actually a commercial director out of a company in Los Angeles called Jojax. That's JOJX, and
Okay.
we had been awarded a project for a company called Northern Tool. We worked with this amazing agency, and they had Northern Tool already had a relationship with Ray because she is a metal worker and a fabricator. And they really wanted to tell stories of people that actually work with their hands and actually really use these type of tools. And um, she has built a pretty large following. So we get on set, and I tell you, I would say in the first 3 minutes, she was just like, whatever you want, I'm here for you. And as a director, you want that from your talent and vice versa. So the course of the 3-day shoot, we just got to know each other, and she started sharing some of her story. And I just felt like there was something there. Didn't know yet what it was, but that let's keep in touch, and let's kind of, maybe we'll talk and something will evolve from it.
And then what triggered, because you did mention you do a lot of commercials. What triggered that to take this to that next level, make it to a documentary and
So for me, commercials, and the filmmaking process, I came into this wanting to be a filmmaker. I've always thought of myself as a filmmaker. I am a more narrative type of human stories when it comes to the commercial campaigns. I'm more motivated into the believability and creating moments on camera. And I always wanted to create a narrative piece, and do something. Um, and by the time I met Rae, I was just coming out of the pandemic, and with a new kind of agenda for myself, and was really committed to wanting to tell a story and invest that time and commitment into something. And through us getting to know each other, I was like, I'm really prepared to give 7, 8 months, a year to really crafting this and doing it the right way. And it just started to speak to me. And also, I wanted a way, to express my own filmmaking style. I love docs, but I also am very intrigued in cinematography, and I wanted to combine those two worlds, and create this really beautiful kind of story, even though it is in this kind of more desolate area of West Texas, and she is working with motorcycles and welding. But I wanted the film itself to be this symbol of beauty, because deep down, I mean, Rae is that beauty.
I mean, what a great first time, first subject to go into this documentary. Is this your first documentary, or did you do one before?
Nope, this is the first time I've stepped out of the commercial seat, and entered into the narrative, and more importantly into a doc itself. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, she sounds remarkable, and just listening to you talk about it, it's just kind of sounds like a just a great topic. As far as your commercial career, what are some of the commercials we might have seen?
So I've done a variety of commercials. I think some that I have done, um, that, again, they're more stories. So I do stuff in healthcare.
Mhm.
I've done things even on for like Universal Studios for Halloween Horror Nights. So I've
Oh,
branched over there. I've done campaigns for Crayola, for Bose, for
wow.
Budweiser. Um, so it varieties. It's spread throughout all the place. Northern Tool is one of them I just recently did, and trying to think of some other ones off the top of my head. But when you look at my work, there is a tone to it, and so you can see a lot of what Ripple is. But Ripple took me even to a much grittier kind of storytelling that I wanted to do, and I did something different, that I've always wanted to do. I tend to move the camera quite a bit in commercials because I'm working in such a small windows. But with Ripple, I wanted the camera to be very still.
Mhm.
So I did a lot of more lock. I don't think I've ever shot anything on sticks before, and yet I was shooting on sticks for this. I forced myself to do that. I wanted to push myself away from something that felt comfortable, and really explore something that was more slower. The camera can play its story out, move slowly through things, and really let the narrative and let the audience feel and hear the world in which we were presenting to them.
Now you talked about the stillness of the cameras. What other challenges did you face, and well, what kind of growth did you get from making this that maybe you
Well,
didn't?
the number one thing is my soul was completely fulfilled. Uh, as being an artist, it was probably one of the greatest moments for myself, because I finally stepped out. I funded the whole film myself. I didn't want
Wow.
to reach out to anyone. Um, I too have put the pressures on myself that will this work? I want it to succeed. I don't want to fail. And if I had complete ownership of it, um, I could be the one to say, I'm not going to move forward anymore with this. I don't think it's there, and not continue with the project. But when people get to meet Rae, it was a great combination for both of us because she was a champion. She allowed me to fully enter her world, and I think the original challenges were building the trust with her, letting her
Mhm.
know that we were going to come into her world. And we went in with a very, very small crew. That film was made with 4 people.
Wow.
Um, and so I think that that's something to be said because the way it looks, it was just myself, Dan Stewart, the cinematographer, Jason Heyman, who was the producer, and Joshua Lamel, who was the AC and he did sound. So I wanted it to be very small, and I handpicked these individuals because they are gentle creatures and just wonderful people to be around. And being in her home, and really Rae was the fifth. I mean, we
Mhm.
don't make this without her, and the friendship and the bond. I will say this: at the end of filming that, I had just asked her, "What did you feel if you could take away this entire experience? How would you sum it up if you had a word?" And she just said family, and that
Yeah.
just was really profound. So we did become a family. We still consider ourselves part of a family in telling this story. But I think I've been in a lot of situations over my career and challenges of trying to make things on low budgets, and I've done very massive budgets.
Mhm.
So I think the big thing for me was as a director, was I getting enough? Was I covering enough? Was I doing her justice? Was I telling this story with grace and kindness? And was I giving it a sense of a vulnerability? And would the audience connect with it? And I really wanted to do right by her because she was giving this trust to me. Those were probably the biggest things. Is I did not want to fail Rae. I didn't want to fail myself, and I didn't want to fail, the people that were, being a part of this. So I think those were some of the biggest things.
Now you mentioned that you funded this yourself, so to me that tells me that you had all the creative control. How important was that for your first film? Whereas I'm assuming, and forgive me if I'm wrong, when you do commercials, you have to answer to a lot of people with whatever you're producing. But this one, how important was it for you to take that kind of control?
Well, I I try to have all the control, even in
Okay.
commercials. And I say that jokingly. It is a collaboration, but I really, it's about building trust with agencies and letting them know that I really want to elevate. I am a very much of a service person. I really want to elevate anyone's creative and put my special touch on it. And you can do that in a healthy way, and you can do it together, and you can also make suggestions, and if you build that trust, then your suggestions can get accomplished, and you can go from there. With this, having all that control was great because I very much like to have that. I like to be the one to balance it because I gave a lot to Rae. To everyone that works with me, it doesn't feel like what I say is the final thing. It's more of a community. I
Mhm.
check in with my longtime partner Jason, like, what do you think of this? And the cinematographer, like, what do you want to do differently? And explaining things with Rae and like, how do you see things? Like, are you comfortable with this? And sharing the footage. And so it really becomes about sharing. And I feel like I'm more of a, just guiding things as opposed to just like truncating and being very, this is the way it's going to be. Um, I did the post, I did all the edit on the back end. I think that that was the hardest thing I ever did to myself.
Mhm.
I would have liked to have had an editor
Mhm.
on this. And I reached out to some friends and they gave input, but for something like this and trying to keep the financial component small enough that I could handle, I
Mhm.
just had to take that on because I probably spent 6 months, with the editing process of really trying to shape it. And I brought in a friend, Jay, who was the writer. I figured we brought in Ray, myself, and Jay, and the three of us shaped a lot. And Jay really came in and helped shape it a little bit more narratively. Anyone that touched this film, everyone just was so huge in making it come to what it is today.
Well, it sounds really remarkable. And how much while you're making this, did you still do a lot of projects with your day job? Or was it
So
solely?
I was lucky enough. I mean, it was 1 year ago, pretty close to this date. We left January 5th. We landed in Midlands, Texas, around the 5th, and we only were there for 3.5 days. So we shot the whole film in 3.5 days, and
Wow.
yeah. And I would always thought that I was going to go back and do pickup shots. So we
Hmm.
were always like, and that was a stressful thing for me because I was like, oh man, I don't know. It's a journey to get to Rae. You have to,
Right.
I have to, it's 2 flights and then a long drive. But I was prepared to do it. But I wrote a detailed treatment with Jay, and I wrote out a deep treatment, and I mood boarded it all. We created some arcs. I had lots of mood boards that I created so that I could stay true to it. And then every night I would just be editing the film in my head
Hmm.
and checking off, knowing that I had certain audio cue moments. Now we did do some pickup audios with
Hmm.
her, but we kind of really structured it out, and we just maximized our shooting from
Hmm.
morning to evening.
Wow. That's quite a production schedule. Have you ever shot in Palm Springs, or do you have a lot of history out here?
I've never been to Palm Springs,
Wow.
so I'm very excited. My wife and I are coming out. I think we've sent a rather big list to Lynn, and I know that friends from LA are coming, so the turnout can be bigger. I mean, I don't know what to expect. Now, granted, when I was coming up as a young buck,
Hmm.
I was a coordinator and worked at the Sundance Film Festival for 5 years on the logistics component of it. So I've experienced a festival and what it's like, but as a filmmaker, this is the first for me, and so it's just beyond exciting, and I'm incredibly grateful to be a part of AmDocs. It means a lot that it's going to have a chance to be screened on the big screen, and I'm currently doing a 5:1 mix on it now on the film, so that you really can embrace that in the theater.
Now, what do you have plans for a second one yet, or you just want to get through this
No,
festival season?
I'm no, I'm trying to go for another film
Hmm.
before the festivals begin for the following year. But this time, I want to go narrative,
Hmm.
and that's another step for me that I haven't shaped. It would still be a short, but I I think I'm going to tackle a pretty heavy subject in this political year on immigration, and
Oh, wow.
yeah. So I grew up in a family that was very um, for farm workers and migrants, and
Hmm.
it's been something that's been a part of my life, my whole life, of finding the humanitarian and supporting the migrants. And we actually live in Florida, so
Mm.
this our state is filled with a lot of immigrants that come here in our agriculture, and it's a really touchy subject, and I really feel like it's a story that I'm not sure yet. I'm in the early stages, but really want to paint the human component of it. It's not so
Hmm.
much about, because a lot of things are being said
Hmm.
about migrants that um, spins one narrative,
Hmm.
and I just want to remind people that they're humans and they're people, and if you could understand a little bit more of the world and conflict that they're in,
Hmm.
um, we can be a little bit more humane in how
Hmm.
we handle things. And so I want to tell a very intense narrative short that focuses really specifically on a certain event.
Interesting, because I know I have someone to introduce you to. I did an interview with someone who will be at the festival. They did a film called Shura of this octogenarian who provides humanitarian aid at the Mexican-Arizona border. And so
Oh, interesting.
some of that stuff that you're talking about, I think that kind of touches. So when you get here, I'll try to introduce the both of you. I think
Yeah,
that would
please
be
do.
an interesting.
Yeah, I
The
think
last
the
point.
big thing. Oh, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
no, no. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was going to change the subject. Go
No,
ahead.
that would be the thing. I mean, I'm developing it right now. I mean, my goal would be to have some type of rough structure by January, and really, have a lock script in February. And I'm planning. I'd love to shoot by May. I think that's one last thing to say. Like, even though our time is small, being in commercials and understanding like you have to execute and make decisions fast in such a small window, and time is of the essence, that 3 days of shooting, I just know how to really push the time, and I just know what I want and need. So I think that it is crazy that we did it in 3.5 days, but at the same time, uh, the decisions and thought process was very. We were just executing because we had planned so much of, like, how we were going to approach this.
Mhm. I think the last thing I was going to ask, a lot of our filmmakers are young, are young people, and some of them are looking to do other things. So if any of our filmmakers decide to go in the commercial world, not to steal business from you, but what advice would you give them if they want to make that transition from doing these documentaries to maybe doing commercials?
I think any part of this medium, whether it's music videos or commercials, um, to be behind the camera is there's so much joy. I think anyone young getting into it, I'm a big component of it. I encourage it. I'm one of those that I want to pay it forward. I think it's very important for young people to reach out to people that they're already liking in the commercial front, and Instagram has been such a huge platform. It's how
Mhm.
I meet a lot of cinematographers and communicate to people in my industry. And a lot of the people that I know, it's a different generation now, and I just feel like there's so much giving and love, and you can help shape people, and you have to shoot, you have to keep pushing, you have to see what's out there. Um, but commercials are wonderful.
Mhm.
There is a place to do interesting things, and there's a lot to learn on how to deal with agencies and more of the political aspects, and that comes over time. But
Mhm.
for me to be behind a camera and directing talent and telling stories or creating images, there's just nothing more gratifying than. So for me, my journey is to continue that, but I really want to open my voice
Mhm.
in docs and narratives. That's going to be the next part of my chapter.
Well, we're excited to have another new voice in documentaries. I've been looking at all the descriptions of the film. It sounds really exciting. I can't wait to see it at the festival on the big screen. And it was just a
Yeah.
pleasure to meet you today. So
Yeah.
we're really
Likewise.
excited. So again, our festival is March 21st to 25th, and look in the descriptions, and we'll have some information on tickets. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you so much.